Hey guys, Josh here from Momentum Productions, and today we are going to be comparing the two gimbal beasts, and that is the FeiyuTech A2000 and the Zhiyun Crane version 2. Who will win? Well, let's find out. And throughout this video, I suggest that you take some notes if you are considering buying either the Zhiyun Crane or the FeiyuTech A2000, because we're going to be covering a lot of material in this video.
Both the Zhiyun Crane version 2 and the FeiyuTech A2000 have been two competitors for a while now, but which gimbal will be the better choice? Let's find out. With the Zhiyun Crane version 2, we are equipped with a hard shell case. Inside the case, you will find the gimbal body, batteries, charger, USB cable, lens support bracket, and manual. Everything that your gimbal needs is already supplied to you. However, we do not have the convenience of having a tabletop tripod. We'll talk more about that in just a few moments. With the FeiyuTech A2000, we are supplied with a soft shell case. It is in no way a comparison to the hard shell case on the Zhiyun Crane version 2. However, this case does have a smaller form factor, which might make it easier for travel. As soon as we unzip the case, we are greeted with the manual. As we tilt up, we will notice that there is a soft netted compartment made for holding some straps or some other loose cables. Here we can see the shutter release cable. Unlike the Zhiyun Crane, the A2000 does not support the charging of your camera. Now let's remove the Velcro straps and let's see what's inside. I like this extra layer of protection. It gives me more confidence when traveling with this case. Even though this is a soft shell case, the quality foam does a great job of protecting the gimbal. As you can see, everything is neat and organized. Let's start by talking about the battery life. On the Zhiyun Crane, we're supplied with two large batteries, which are rated to give us over 15 hours of operation time, while on the A2000, we have two smaller batteries, which are rated to give us 6 hours of operation time. But on the A2000, we are supplied with 4 of those batteries, which means we get 12 hours total of operation time. The gimbal can only load 2 batteries at a time. These two gimbals are extremely similar when it comes to assembly. As you can see, on the Zhiyun Crane, we just have to load up the batteries into the handle and then screw it onto the gimbal body. Since the Zhiyun Crane does not come with its own tabletop tripod, I bought my own. It's from a company called Gear, and it's a great one. Check the link below in the description box to find out where you can get your own. Having a tabletop tripod allows us to balance the gimbal a lot more accurately, and it's just overall more convenient. So I strongly recommend that you get one. The assembly process on the FeiyuTech A2000 is just as easy as the Zhiyun Crane version 2. All we have to do is unscrew the handle and load up the batteries. Remember, we are only using 2 batteries at a time with this gimbal. Once we have loaded the batteries into the handle, we are ready to fasten the handle to the gimbal body. We do this by using the metal fastener on the top of the handle, and then tightening it up. Once it's tight, you are ready to continue the installation process. Overall, I like the handle system on the FeiyuTech A2000 more than on the Zhiyun Crane. Because on the Zhiyun Crane, I've had times of the handle unscrewing by itself and then the battery cutting out on power. This can cause some people to worry thinking that their gimbal is broken, and it can also ruin a shot. On the FeiyuTech A2000, I also decided to purchase another tabletop tripod. The plastic tripod that comes with the FeiyuTech A2000 doesn't do a great job of keeping the gimbal stable on any flat surface, especially when you're working with a heavy camera setup. Now let's set up the Zhiyun Crane with the camera. Unfortunately, I found it to be extremely difficult to balance the Zhiyun Crane in a short amount of time. This is because the sliding plate that's on the system is very choppy and difficult to move forward or backward, making balancing very tough at times. You might be better off getting a quick release plate for the system. Don't forget that when you're buying a quick release system, you are adding to the cost of using this gimbal. The balancing process can be very tedious, especially if you're a beginner to these kinds of gimbals. I wish Zhiyun incorporated some specific grooves or stops in each adjustment arm. That way, the movement of each adjustment arm wouldn't be too far. That way we can get finer tune adjustments. With the FeiyuTech A2000, we have an included quick release system. So this makes the balancing process on the FeiyuTech A2000 a little bit easier than on the Zhiyun Crane. And unlike the Zhiyun Crane, the FeiyuTech A2000 has little grooves inside of each adjustment arm. This prevents each adjustment arm from moving too far, and it allows you to make more fine-tuned adjustments. Overall, both gimbals were easy to balance. However, the A2000 does get the lead in this. The quick release plate and the adjustment arm grooves make this a more user-friendly gimbal. Both gimbals do a great job of concealing their internal wires. That way, it doesn't stand out and it looks more professional. Before we get into some test footage, let's talk about payload capacity. The Zhiyun Crane is rated to hold up to 1,800 grams, while the FeiyuTech A2000 can hold up to 2,000 grams. When using different zoom lenses, some of us don't have time to continuously rebalance the system when changing focal lengths. So let's see how the gimbal behaves when we zoom in on this 24-70 Zeiss lens. When looking at this footage, take a look at how the gimbal bounces when I tap onto the lens hood. As we zoom in, it should be more difficult for the gimbal to balance the camera properly. It will stress out the motors more, but it's important to see if these motors are strong enough to withstand a zoom lens. So far, it's doing a decent job. Let's go to full telephoto at 70mm. Let's see how the gimbal behaves now. We are now introducing some bouncing. These motors are now having a tough time with this lens. This is important to pay attention to because this can introduce some shaking or bouncing in your footage. Let's see how the A2000 holds up. Starting with 24mm. It's rock solid. Actually, it's much more stiff than on the Zhiyun Crane. Now let's increase it to 50mm. The gimbal still seems solid, however, there is a little bit of change in movement there in the pitch. But there's not as much bouncing as there was on the Zhiyun Crane. Now let's increase to 70mm. Now at 70mm, we can see a little bit of bouncing. However, the gimbal then adjusts the motor strength and there is much less bouncing, but there is a minor change in pitch while we tap the lens hood. The change in pitch will not happen while you're shooting, because there will be no external forces pushing down on the lens. Next, I would like to talk about going into inverted mode. On the Zhiyun Crane, you can see how it has some issues going into inverted mode. This is because the algorithms in the encoders are not doing the best job possible when anticipating movement. So sometimes it takes a few moments for the Zhiyun Crane to realize it's in upright mode or in inverted mode. For the Zhiyun Crane, I recommend going into inverted mode slowly rather than quickly. That way the encoders can properly anticipate your movements. On the FeiyuTech A2000, I had a slightly better response from the motors. The A2000 took a lesser amount of time to anticipate my movements and was able to better calculate inverted mode and upright mode. Next, let's talk about ergonomics. On the right, we have the A2000, and on the left, the Zhiyun Crane. We can clearly see the difference in the handle size. Now, not only does the A2000 have a thicker handle, it also has a nice coating of rubber, which makes it slip resistant. The Zhiyun Crane handle is thinner and all metal, but I do like the way they designed the pan motor. That way I can easily rest my forefinger right under it. We also have a trigger located on the back of the handle on the A2000. This button can enter full lock mode and recenter the gimbal. On the front of the gimbals, we have beautiful control panels with joysticks, power buttons, and mode buttons. The joystick on the A2000 is a little bit more comfortable for my thumb. I have a better grip on it. The Zhiyun Crane handle has a zoom toggle, however, it doesn't really work, especially with my Sony A9. Both of these gimbals are made out of corrosion-resistant magnesium alloy. This makes it great for shooting in many different kinds of harsh environments. Also, the FeiyuTech A2000 has 2 more accessory ports than the Zhiyun Crane version 2. This is great for mounting external lights and microphones. Here we have the Zhiyun Crane. I'm walking at a 24mm focal length. You can notice that the footage is a little bit shaky and wobbly. Again, take into account that I'm not using any specific walking or shooting techniques. These techniques will greatly improve the way your footage comes out. Just take a look at some of my other gimbal test footage. Here's the A2000 footage. Still, same 24mm focal length, and I'm walking not using any specific techniques. With close observation, we can see that the Zhiyun Crane version 2 wobbles slightly more than the FeiyuTech A2000. With a 50mm lens, we are supposed to see more vibration and shaking. As you can see, both gimbals are doing very well. However, I do see slightly more micro vibrations coming from the Zhiyun Crane. At 70mm, we can see that the FeiyuTech A2000 has more micro vibrations than the Zhiyun Crane version 2. Isn't that interesting? Next, let's talk about the phone applications. On the left, we have the Zhiyun application, and on the right, we have the FeiyuTech application. Both apps are able to control your gimbal wirelessly, and they are both able to adjust motor parameters as well. However, I feel like the Zhiyun app is incomplete. Some functions, like the time-lapse function, are difficult to operate, and I needed to download 2 separate applications in order for me to be happy with changing all of the settings and parameters that I wanted to change. FeiyuTech's application is much more user-friendly. You can quickly adjust motor parameters, set time-lapse functions, and also use the wireless controller. It's so easy, and I absolutely love this application. FeiyuTech definitely wins this round. After owning both stabilizers for some time now, I can happily say that both perform exceptionally well. However, I do think that FeiyuTech has a slight edge with its A2000. The user-friendliness, the application, the accessory ports, the ergonomics. I mean, this gimbal is every filmmaker's dream.
Alright, well that's a comparison between the Zhiyun Crane version 2 and the FeiyuTech A2000. Don't forget to give this video a big like, share it with your friends, and also subscribe to this channel with notifications on. That way you get notified of my latest content. And if you have questions regarding these two gimbals or any other filmmaking questions, go ahead and leave your comment in the comment section below. And I'll also leave links to these gimbals in the description box, so make sure you also check that out. I can't wait to see what you create. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.